And the head of the RNC is criticizing the other candidate, the first woman nominated by a major party, because he thinks she didn't smile enough last night. Let me remind you, there are still 2 months to go. The first debate just a few weeks away. We got the latest from both campaigns tonight after a series of comments from Donald Trump at the NBC Forum last night. Sarah Murray joins us now. So Trump spent a lot of today defending what he said, explaining what he said in the Forum last night.
That's right. He did go after Hillary Clinton. He took another opportunity to take a couple shots at her for her use of a private email server. But he launched into a very lengthy defense today of his view of the war in Iraq. He again restated that he was opposed to the war before it began. And this went on for quite a while, but I want to play just a portion of it for you. This up as evidence that he opposed the war in Iraq before it began, when there really is no proof of that, Anderson.
Right, and Corey Lewandowski and the Trump campaign also point to an interview he gave with Neil Cavuto. They say before the war in January, I think of 2003, the war began in March. But even in that interview, Trump saying, well, perhaps we shouldn't go in, perhaps we should. He's not definitively saying one way or the other, which is something he had said, although in passing, on the Howard Stern show before the war. So Trump's reading from that Esquire interview, he cited a section about Osama bin Laden. What did he say?
Well, this was particularly interesting because of the timing, Anderson. Of course, as you know, we're coming up onto the 15th anniversary of 9/11. And as he was citing this, there's a portion of the article in which he says that if he had been president, he would have caught Osama bin Laden much faster, that the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center never would have happened. So an interesting comment to sort of reiterate in light of how close that anniversary is, and also in light of the fact that both candidates have sort of agreed not to make Sunday a political day, and both of them have said they will not be on the campaign trail.
Sarah Murray. Sarah, thanks very much. Hillary Clinton, a short time ago, spoke about her faith at the National Baptist Convention in Kansas City, Missouri. Earlier in the day, she slammed Trump for his statements last night, saying he treats everything like a game, like he's living in his own celebrity reality TV program. Joe Johns is here with the latest from the Clinton campaign. So a lot today, Secretary Clinton spent a lot of time today expanding on what she said during the forum last night.
Right, and it's clear they were not happy with what has been described as the rush feeling of the forum. They say the candidate...
CNN Breaking News.
Hello, everybody. I'm John Vos in Los Angeles with breaking news from the Korean Peninsula. The U.S. Geological Survey is reporting a 5.3 magnitude earthquake in North Korea. Let's go to Paula Hancock's on the line now in Seoul, South Korea. And Paula, at this point, we're trying to work out whether that is a natural event or whether it is, in fact, a man-made explosion, which would indicate something much more serious.
That's right, John. Yes, we know that officials here in Seoul are looking into this urgently to find out if, in fact, it is a man-made earthquake. Of course, if that is the case, then it would point to the fact that it could well be the fifth nuclear test that officials here have been predicting for some months now. It's an important day today in North Korea. It is Foundation Day, so the anniversary of the creation of North Korea, and if in fact this is another nuclear test, and that is not confirmed at this point, it would be the second in 1 year from the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which would be unprecedented. But as I say, we know that officials at this point are trying to figure out if it is a man-made earthquake, in which case it would point us towards the fact that it could well be a nuclear test. John?
And of course, what we're looking at now is the size of, or the power of this earthquake, 5.3. If I'm not mistaken, in the past, when there have been these similar underground nuclear tests, it has been a magnitude similar to that which was registered by the U.S. Geological Survey. Also looking at the location of the epicenter. What does that tell us about what this may or may not have been?
That's right, yes. We know that, in fact, at this point, we're just getting information in from the South Korean Meteorological Administration saying that they do, in fact, believe that this earthquake in North Korea is artificial. So that, of course, points us towards the fact that there's nothing natural about this. This is a man-made event, and so once again pointing us even stronger in the direction that this was a nuclear test. The magnitude, as you say, that is key. In the past, we have seen similar kind of magnitude, certainly in January of this year, at the fourth nuclear test by North Korea. It was a very similar magnitude. that particular occasion, North Korea claimed it was a hydrogen bomb, although many experts cast doubt on that. And then once again today, the South Korean Meteorological Association saying this is an artificial earthquake. John?
Okay, so we're still not at the point where we can officially confirm that there has in fact been some kind of underground nuclear test inside North Korea, but there are a lot of indications pointing us in that direction right now. This is a man-made quake, if you like. It's not a natural occurring earthquake of magnitude 5.3. Similar magnitudes have been recorded in the past where the North Koreans have conducted nuclear tests, 4 other nuclear tests. One also just this year, as you say, Paula, unprecedented. If this is in fact a second nuclear test for 2016. So as we continue to monitor the situation, we know that the North Koreans, this is a very special holiday. You're saying it's Foundation Day. They like doing these kind of tests, be it ballistic missile tests or nuclear tests on these significant anniversaries, these significant holidays.
Well, that's right. And we've actually been hearing from South Korean officials for some time that they believed they were ready to do a 5th nuclear test. In fact, it was quite shortly after the 4th nuclear test that South Korean officials started pointing to the fact that they could well carry out number 5. I think many experts at that point believed it would just be too soon, but they said all that was lacking was the political will. So they were effectively waiting for Kim Jong-un to give the go-ahead and to decide that the political climate was right for him to carry out this 5th nuclear test. Now, of course, if in fact this is a nuclear test, we can expect a tremendous amount of condemnation to flood in from around the world. The North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, is perfectly aware that that is what will happen. But as we've seen in recent months, he's very unconcerned with this international criticism, with these strengthening sanctions that have been approved earlier this year. Just a few days ago, we saw 3 ballistic missiles being fired and landing in the exclusive economic zone of Japanese area in the waters there. So clearly, this is not a leader who is that concerned about international condemnation.
Okay, Paula Hancock's there on the line from Seoul, giving us the very latest information that we have. And just to update you, what we are now being told by the South Koreans, that this is in fact a man-made explosion, if you like, measuring a magnitude of 5.3 in the northern part of North Korea. You can see the epicenter there marked on the map. And of course, there has been expectations that the North Koreans would carry out some kind of a 5th nuclear test, I should say. They've already carried out their 4th this year. It is unusual for the North Koreans to carry out 2 nuclear tests in 1 year. This would in fact be the first time, if indeed this is in fact some kind of nuclear test. That is yet to be confirmed. But as Paula was reporting and what we're hearing from the South Koreans, all the indications are now pointing towards the direction that this was a nuclear test carried out by the North Korean regime. It comes just days after they fired 3 ballistic missiles. They tested those ballistic missiles while the US President Barack Obama was in the region. There was a great deal of outrage and condemnation to the North Koreans over that. It meant very little to the leadership there of Kim Jong-un. And of course, as Paula was also reporting, the only thing lacking for this 5th nuclear test was the political will. And it does seem that the regime there in Pyongyang now has the political will to carry out this nuclear test, which we are now waiting for confirmation. As soon as we do get that confirmation, as we get more details on this breaking news, we will bring it to you. But for now, we'll head back to Anderson Cooper 360, already in progress.
General Herling, just to be clear, I mean, you're saying this as somebody who served in northern Iraq. I mean, if the idea of trying to convince the Iraqis that we should get some reparations, which is something that was discussed early on, certainly in the war, is saying to them, you're not a real country, you don't really exist, is that a wise thing for a U.S. president to say?
No, I don't believe so. And in fact, that's exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do in Iraq. We're trying to help them get a government that represents the 19 million people that live there, the Shia, the Sunnis, the Kurds, the Ottomans, the Turks, the Assyrians, the Chaldeans. It is a very disparate nation. They certainly have some challenges, but they've been trying to put together a government that in fact will represent their people. And they actually need some of their natural resources to help them pay for some of the things like security forces, sewage, water, electricity, and oil is their biggest product. So taking their oil would actually run counter to what we're trying to do and establish a government that would support the people of Iraq.
Admiral Williams, sorry, go ahead.
I did not hear anybody say take 100% of the oil and leave Iraq with no oil. And when you asked me to come on today, there was a conference, there was a meeting yesterday that Matt Lauer hosted or conducted. And I listened to that earlier today, and I didn't hear anything on that in that interview about Chevron coming in and running the oil tankers.
Right. Well, I can tell you in multiple interviews, I mean, with me, he has said that from early on in the primary season, and he continues to say, take the oil. But when you hear Donald Trump say that America's generals have been reduced to rubble, Admiral, does that give you pause at all, or do you agree that that is the case?
When I made FLAG, the Chief of Naval Operations brought all the admirals in that were recently promoted, and he did a test called Myers-Briggs. And they looked at different personalities. One of them was risk, and he was very concerned because when he found that all his new flags were concerned, they were risk averse. They got a very low grade on risk. And he said, we can't have this. You've got to be on the pointy end of the spear. You've got to be aggressive. You've got to push the envelope. So he was very concerned about that. And I think Donald Trump is concerned about that. You know, anybody who's had command knows that when your boss loses confidence in you, you get relieved. You get fired. So if Donald Trump finds people he doesn't have confidence in, I think he'll make a change. I think that's appropriate.
General Herling, that idea that America's generals have been reduced to rubble, what do you think of it?
I totally disagree, Anderson. And what might be interesting is to ask Mr. Trump to name a single active duty general that's serving, or admiral that's serving right now. And I would bet a month's pay that he couldn't do it right now. The issue is he doesn't know the generals. He's surrounded himself with a coterie of retired people who are telling him some things. Truthfully, the cohorts that I've been serving with, I retired 3 years ago, but the men and women I've served with are extremely capable. They are not risk averse, and in fact, they have been in combat for the last 14 years and have learned how to mitigate risk to give themselves a best advantage. We are challenged with the environment right now. We are dealing with a terrorist fight, which is a much more complex and difficult fight than America has ever fought before. But I would suggest that the leadership of America's armed forces is in very good hands right now in all elements of the service. And I would agree, if a commander-in-chief or the Secretary of Defense finds an admiral or general that has done something wrong, they should relieve them. But that's not the case. What's happening right now, there have been some generals who have been asked to retire early or relieved from their position because they weren't living up or violating standards, but for the most part, the several hundred generals and admirals that are serving in the nation's military today, serving the 1% of the American population that are wearing the cloth of the country, are pretty damn good.
Yeah, Admiral Williams, I mean, I would think, given the fact that we have been in war now for more than a decade, there is a whole class of officers and generals who have been facing risk every single day of their service. And so, I mean, to say that they're risk averse, do you think you can really be risk averse given that we've had now ongoing wars in Iraq and Afghanistan for so long?
Well, that's what the test showed when they had the results and they briefed the flag officers.
When was that,
what
though?
they saw. It was around 2001.
Okay.
But the other thing I would point out, Anderson, there was a four-star general, and the command back then was called ACOB. He was a Marine. And I remember he complained about Congress, and he said, I need this, I need these resources, this equipment, I can't get it. And I said, General, I was in 06 at the time. I said, did you ever put those 4 stars on the table and say, if you can't give me what I need or don't believe in me, then you should get somebody else? And his answer to me was, look, let me explain it to you. There's a lot of political correctness. The 1 stars want to be 2 stars, the 2 stars want to be 3 stars, 3 stars want to be 4 stars, and the 4 stars want to be chairman of the Joint Chiefs. So there was a political correctness to be not too far out there, to be risk averse. So I think it exists.
Admiral Williams, I appreciate you being on. General Hertling as well. Thank you. Coming up, Donald Trump doubling down.